Call to order. The Parks and Recreation meeting, March 6th, is now in order. Roll call. Can you do the roll call for us, Mr. Sharretts?
Certainly. Wade Pollock.
Here.
Peter Lake is not here at this point. Caitlin Foy. Joseph Catrombone.
Here.
Rose Vanicolo.
So we'll have a moment of silence. And we'll say the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance to the flag, United States of America, to the republic, and one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Agenda items, 4.1, consider approving the agenda. Do we have a motion? And motion was made by Member Vanicola and approved by, or seconded by Member Foy. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Item 5, public comment for agenda items only. There are no members of the public here. Item 6.1, consider approving the minutes from the February 6, 2025 meeting. Do we have a motion? And a second? Motion was made by Member Foy and seconded by Member Vanicola. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item 7.1, Public Works Update. Mr. Sharretts, please.
Thank you. I'll just update you on a few things that happened during the month of February. First of all, February, as you know, was a heavy winter weather month, so that's where a lot of our focus wound up being. But there's looking for park and trails work that we did. There's been a bit of brush cleanup along in the parks and along the trails and those kind of things. So we've been doing brush cleanup, branch cleanup. There's been some down trees as a result of storms. We've been handling those kind of things. As we go around, there's a lot of maintenance work that we know we need to do before we kind of reopen the parks for the spring. We've been noticing a lot of fences that are broken and things like that. So the staff are working heavily on that this week and next week to really get everything ready with the warm weather. The restrooms at Drexel Lodge will be open once we know that the freezing temperatures are done. So that'll be coming up within the next several weeks, I think. I know it was reported that the Brookside Park, the old batting cage came down, so we've finished all that. The foundations are getting pulled out at this point now. It's one of those things. I was over there again today, just looking at it. It doesn't create a lot of space, but it creates some space. I don't know that it's something that I would start having recommendations for using something differently over there, because it is at the bottom of a hill and it is right next to the playground, but to the ball field. But when you get a chance, go take a look at it. It is kind of nice to see it opened up a little more, and you know, whether we want to consider planting behind it or whether there will be a use for that space, we could talk about in the future. But it's a nice clean look at this point. We have started the goose remediation at Brookside Park and at Drexel Lodge Park for the 3 months. So that's usually February, March, and April to try to discourage the geese from setting up permanent shop in those two parks. And it's the township's animal warden that handles that. And he does various methods to scare them away. That's it. There's nothing lethal that's done with them. It's just discouraging them from staying in one place for too long. I usually like to let you know, because even though they're not parks, but they're still recreation areas and they're areas that the public goes to, the 3 historic sites that the township owns, the Bartram Bridge down at the corner of Goshen and Boot Road. So the structural rehabilitation work has been going along there. The stone piers and foundations have been getting rebuilt, and that work has been progressing well. We're hoping within the next few weeks that piece will be done, and then the wood timber work will be put out to bid again. But if you stop by, you'll see that there's a lot of work going on over there. The Square Tavern, which is now owned by the township at the end of the Goshen Trail on the corner of Goshen and 252, Staff have been taking care of that property now, and both on the inside as well as on the outside. So you'll hear me talking about the kind of things going on there in the future. And then the paper mill house, the roof itself is basically done at this point. The chimney rebuild is supposed to be done within the next couple of weeks, and then the scaffolding and those things should come away from it. So again, if you happen to be out at that property and be thinking of things to do out there, the scaffolding should be coming down within the next couple of weeks. Lastly, I'll just share with you, we did some property surveys at Newby Park and at Brookside Park, just verifying a couple property lines where there were some questions. We're doing a property survey at the Square Tavern so that we know exactly where the limits of that property are and where they tie into the Goshen Trail. And then finally, the Gable Field, the project for the returfing of the turf field behind the building here was started about a week ago, and it's about a month process. So all the demo work is done. The stone work is being finalized underneath. The turf has been delivered, and they're going to start getting ready to put all the turf down within the next week or so.
All right, they stopped today and took some pictures. Cable and sent them out. To come up in your discussions.
Great, thank you. It should really be nice when it's done. And again, it's a multi-use field. There's a number of the community sports teams that it's being lined for, that they're going to be able to make, extra use of it. And I think the community should be proud of it when it's done.
There will be screening on the trail top, right, the backside to keep people, right now it's open. I think, people walk their dogs and kids on bicycles. If you're talking to the contractors, they seem to think they're going to put screening in.
Yeah, there's fencing that's going up there, so that it's really going to be, the field is going to be better controlled, so that, the entry points are going to be very specific on how you get into it. And we're going to discourage things that would damage the turf field as much as possible when people go on it, because people do make unfortunate choices with the turf field on occasion.
It's a massive, I don't know if you guys have an opportunity to stop in, but I saw it today walking around, that it's massive. So huge. You wouldn't think of it, when the turf was down, it didn't look as big, but right now no.
It is amazing how much bigger it looks
Yeah.
when it's stone versus when it's turf. I don't know why that is, but it's just a strange, I looked out over it today and I thought, I know it didn't grow, but it feels bigger. I think it's because it's a lighter color, and it makes it just look bigger. It's a big area.
They've done a wonderful job. Well, a lot of it's labor intensive.
Yeah.
Yeah, the demo was very interesting to watch, the skill that they did it with. And they cut the turf up and they rolled it up in the sections. All of that turf is being reused in some fashion. So it actually goes down south and they repurpose it and use it, not usually not on a sports, but they sell for folks who need strips of turf for batting cages and things like that. It gets reused there. I know that after they were doing that, Broomall Newtown Baseball asked if they could have a few rolls of it for their batting cages down in Thomas Field. Newtown Edgemont Little League asked if they could have some for use up the hill there. And even Garrett Williamson had some use for it. So we were able to get, I think, 10 of the 70-foot sections, and we're able to distribute them out that way. The company was fine with that. It's essentially a commodity for them, but they were able to portion some off and keep it in the community here.
You said doing surveying at Brookside?
Yeah, so up at the top of the hill of Brookside, on the not on where the railroad was, but on the opposite side of it, there were some encroachment issues that had come up again, and so we were resurveying we had done a primary survey back a few years ago, so we're just refreshing the marks again so that it's very clear with the neighbors. Here's where the dividing line is. When that's done, I'll make sure to let you know. It would not be bad for you to kind of see where the limits of the park are, just so you can have in the back of your mind. And Newbie, it was a similar thing. It was only over on the Marble side. A question came up. There was an encroachment issue and there was a fallen tree issue. And it's not a very expensive proposition for the surveyor to go out and recheck because they had already done the work. So they were all they had to go out was refine the pins and verify that they're in the correct locations.
Thanks. Item 8.1, update, discussion, and possible action for the annual stream cleanup hosted by CRC Drexel Lodge. Saturday, March 29th from 9 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. Link for a sign-up sheet through the CRC organization. I've attended, I think, other. Have you been there, Liz? No, Drexel Lodge. I think Joe was there. I think you were there last year with your son, weren't you, Joe?
Was it,
BLP. I'm pretty sure you were at Drexel Lodge Park under the pavilion. We meet under the pavilion there.
I thought it was Greer.
Maybe. Well, it's hosted by Mike McGraw, who is a biologist. Really good guy. He's had a lot of input. I think he's an ornithologist as well. So he's just an insightful guy. If you guys show up, if you know neighbors, they can sign up for it. Still open.
Yeah, Mike McGraw with CRC, he takes personal interest in it. I mean, he used to sit on Parks and Recreation years ago, so he's got a affinity for it.
The Cub Scouts were socializing that sign up website as well, so expect it.
Cool. Yeah, it's a good place for the youngsters to go to.
For your record, I would just make note that Peter arrived at 7:15.
Peter Lake arrived at 7:15 tonight and is in attendance currently. Item 8.2 is update, discussion, and possible action for the annual Greer Park and Brookside Park stream cleanup hosted by DCVA on Saturday, April 5th from 9 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. And there's a link for a sign-up sheet there as well. So there's site captains. I do the site captain for Greer Park. Marty Milligan, who lives on Brookside, does the Brookside Park cleanup. He's been doing it for, I think, over 20 years now, Marty. And normally we have the police officers show up at Brookside, and they do a good job there. And last year we had them plant trees as well. I'm going to contact Shade Tree Commission to see if we could have some trees installed there again this year. Worked out rather well. Anyone, we could spread the word on that. That would be great. Business 9.1, update, discussion, and possible action regarding Eagle Scouts projects. So Mr. Sharretts and I met with Carlo. I can't remember his last name. And he is requesting to do a project, a communication board in some of the parks. He's just doing some research now for an Eagle Scout project. So he seems very enthusiastic. His father was there. He'll, I guess, be presenting it to us in the next couple of months or so.
Bolton.
Yeah. I don't know if anyone has any ideas on what it should be. What we described was that we'd like it to have space enough for 4 8.5 by 11 sheets of paper, scaled down posters of events that we would have, and the Trails Committee and Environmental Advisory Council, whoever, in the township or other committees could have information there as well. And one sheet would be a static kind of sheet that would describe, what's going, the history of the park, that kind of stuff. We told them to go to Drexel Lodge and take a look at there's like 3 different designs, or maybe even 4 communication boards there that use for samples. You want to add anything?
I think we were just talking, we want to make sure that for the record that it's understood, the communication board concept is for more like notices and those kind of things, events like you were talking about, versus the kind of communication board that went in a few years ago that was more the pictures on it and I think they both can be called communication boards. We just want to make sure for the record it's understood which one it
But
is.
bulletin information board.
Yeah, that,
Because I think the communication board is like the.
because when we first said that, my mind immediately went to our playground boards that we're allowing kids to use to
right.
communicate who
The
have
pictogram.
special needs that they point to and do that. And that's, I was thinking, oh, that's a great project. And then when you said where you were putting them, and I went, I don't know, that makes sense. And then
Yeah.
you went on and then I understood.
That's a good distinction.
So have you seen those, Joe? The boards that they're talking about?
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool. And, my own granddaughters have, gone up to them and asked, talked, and we've touched them. And I have seen kids using those communication. Item 9.2, discussion of possible action about family and community events for 2025. So I was able to get over to Galantino's in Broomall, who does landscape wholesale type of stuff. I think your husband Rob probably goes there, right? I don't know if you've ever been there, Joe.
Yes.
It's like, they have quarry kind of rocks and,
all sorts of
timber and lighting for landscaping, all sorts of stuff. They've been in business for a long, long time. And, part of the community, I think we've used them, the township has actually used them to purchase a lot of items. And so I described what we wanted, and they had a guy take me out in the yard, he made some suggestions. So what they are suggesting is, I think it's 3 to 5 inch rocks that we would use for the rocks. This is for the rock snake project at Newbie Park. And so the bags have probably 50 rocks in each, or maybe even more, and they're 3 to 5 inches. Some of them look a little smaller than that. And so they're going to donate 5 bags to the township. They were very nice about it. So they put a slip in, and George is going to send the guy over to pick the stones up. Peter has volunteered to help paint. I talked to one of the art teachers, Jill Bailey or Bialy from Culbertson. She suggested painting these rocks white prior to taking them to the schools and have them painted by the students, because it just makes rocks a lot brighter, and then clear coating them afterwards. So Peter and I are going to paint all these rocks white. I met with Harry Robinson today and picked his brain because he's pretty resourceful. So he's suggesting that we get cement mixing tubs, fill them with paint, and then use like chicken wire.
Oh, and
Put
dip
the
'em-
rocks,
dip 'em in
dip
the-
them, and then we'll put them on.
So you don't
farms.
have to brush them.
Yes,
Well, he's smart.
yeah, yeah.
I
Yeah.
never would have come up with that.
Yeah. Harry's good brain to pick for
Yeah.
anything like this, yeah.
Tell him that.
Yeah. So that's what we're looking at. And
What day are we gonna do?
so
that?
we don't know. We'll
Okay.
have to figure that out. George is gonna let us use the front of one of the bays in the Public Works building.
Mhm.
And we'll put tarp down so we don't mess the floor up. Harry said he would clean it up because that area is a little muddy usually. And that way we're not impacting the trucks from being stored on the weekend. So if anyone else wants to help, we'll figure out the exact date coming forward.
It's a weekend day,
Yeah,
Saturday.
and then we'd have to come back Sunday and pick them up, put them in 5-gallon buckets or something when they're dry.
Right.
So, okay, all right, okay,
Cool.
all right.
Then I don't have to. No,
So if it happens between now and the next meeting, I'll just send out an email or a text message to everyone individually. We'll just do the work and not discuss any other business. And then we'll try and figure out the exact day of installing these, because we're gonna have to coordinate getting them to the schools. I think the 4 schools, elementary schools in Marple Newtown would be, they're interested in doing some of the work. I don't know what the exact math is, 700, about 750 rocks is what we need.
How long is the snake gonna be?
I can't remember the exact size. I met with Kathy Cavalier from the Historic Society. Yes,
Yeah.
she's an artist, so her and I walked it and judged where to put it and how big it would be and about how many rocks it would. Going to be a little bit of a project for us, but I think going to really add something to Newbie Park, which is going to help with any issues we've seen over there. Any questions or? And then, what else was there?
Anything on the Cub Scouts? Any ideas? For their little projects?
Well, yeah. Definitely gonna be.
No, it's a good place to start.
So the other item was movie night. Discuss that. So I did reach out to George had provided one of the places. They all seem to be similar. I did call a few and got numbers, so this one seems to be the most used, and it was recommended by another township. I did talk to some other townships about what they do. So to have one movie, and them provide the screen, the sound system, and the projector is $975, and all the personnel that would be required to run this is $975. And then we would be responsible for getting the DVD. So I just used Moana. I called Mona, and my granddaughter straightened me out. Moana 2, which is, I guess in theaters currently, is $650 for a one-time event, plus $30 for the rental of the DVD. So it would be thousands.
$1,600.
Yeah, it would actually be like $1,650 for one movie. It's pretty significant. So to have 3 movies, it's about $525 from this. The company's called Swank. They're the most popular ones that provide the licensing. If you need the licensing for these DVDs, the world we live in today. So it'll go down to $525 for each rental, plus the $30 for the DVD. And that includes return postage. So it's a little bit cheaper for 3 versus 1. And then to purchase the equipment that would be required, it's probably $1,000 to $1,200 for sound system, the projector, and the screen itself. And then we would have to worry about storing it and that kind of stuff. But I would think that, the lifetime of that would probably be 5. So. Sure. Which direction we want to go in, or if we want to even consider this because of the cost. Anybody have any thoughts?
I think.
Yes, it is.
Money towards other projects.
For events. I would go out and solicit funds from local businesses.
How much was
For
Family
this?
Fun Day?
I think-
Just for comparison.
I think it was like $1,400 to $1,600. Right, and we did get a lot for that. One night of,
I
And
think,
then you gotta worry about weather.
I think if you look at
and
how
all
many,
stuff.
I think if you look at how many people came to the concert in the parks, that would be comparable to a movie in the park. So,
What did that cost?
the concert in the park, they were about $1,600.
and the weather was not on our side multiple times.
Yeah.
Right.
Hot.
Rain, on rain. It was a great concert.
Cheaper movie?
So you could get, it wasn't much cheaper even if you went, and got a movie from the 60s even. It was like 575 versus 650. Yeah. It was, and that's, that's the world we're living in
You're,
today.
you're paying for the license. And
Yes.
so, it's, it's just, that's how that works and it's very expensive.
It is a
I mean,
shame.
if you think about what you're doing is, you're showing it. And so they're used to people charging, in the theaters and those kind of things. And so you're just paying for that.
Whereas 20 years ago, we could have the movie out front here and nobody would say a blessed word about it. Yeah.
I mean, I have to tell you, just, in Phoenixville, we had a clock that played music at the top of the hour. And we had to buy the license for that so that it could play the music at the top of the hour.
Really?
And I mean, it was, I forget how many thousands of dollars that we paid every year so that we could play music at the top of the hour 4 times a day or something like that. And so it's expensive. So.
Whatever we decide for spring, it's like a placement for the concert, right?
That's what we're thinking, yeah. I mean, we could actually do a kids concert. There are some, I was trying to find people to do the Family Fun Festival, musicians. Most of them were booked for that time frame. October apparently is a busy month for them. So there were some pretty cheap options, $300, $400, $500. They should come out and play for 2 hours. The band, the plants that we had at the Family Fun Festival, they were a little more expensive. So if you think concert,
I'm just thinking of what would draw like more families.
yeah, we didn't have much luck with it. What's that, Rez?
We said a second family fun day.
Yeah. I mean, we could do something more, a little more scaled back. Petting zoo is cheap.
I wonder if we went for some smaller scale back projects, activities this year, 2025, and we could put out some online surveys or something and find out what the interest would be. Well, if this is a kid's movie, but it has to play later because the sun goes down, are they gonna come out? I mean, I know other parks do this and they can get a pretty big, I think Wayne gets a pretty big crowd. With the concerts, the weather has been.
The township I talked to was in Montgomery County up above Ambler. A nice community, and they had a pretty big turn. But it is quite expensive. We wanted to invest in them, do it, and then, then we're kind of gambling on, is this gonna work or not? And end up with all this equipment that the township's gonna have to pay for.
I think I had this conversation with you a couple times ago, and, from my perspective, if you think you're doing more than one movie night, if it really costs us that amount of money, it probably becomes worth it. If you think you're only going to do one every couple years, I'd rather rent, and so that's how I'd like you to think about it. If if we can buy it for, let's say, $1,200, the equipment that's needed to do it, I'd like you to think about it in light of, I would want you to commit that you're probably going to use it one or two times a year for the next 3 years, kind of thing. That would become what you were going to do. And it may be one of those things, the first time we go ahead and rent it and see what the turnout is and see how people respond. Because that's going to be the real key, right? If you're only having 20 people show up, you may say this is too much effort for 20 folks, right? If you've got 100 folks show up, you may say that's good enough for what we're doing. And so you have to kind of set your expectation and then make your decision that way. I don't want to just rule it out because it's expensive. I want you to rule it out because you don't think it's the best way to go forward. We're going to look and try to verify just how much we have in the budget for community events this year for you guys, so you kind of know what you're working with. But think about what your target is, what you're trying to accomplish. You guys, what you do is so important for building community in our township. I don't want you to undersell what you're trying to do. And, so it may cost us a little bit, but if we think that's the best activity to bring and build a community, then I want you to do it. So that, you hear what I'm saying? It's like, if you think there's something that builds better community, do what builds the best community. This is about building community. It's not just to have an event, right? If you were just doing it to have an event, you probably all would rather stay home, be with your families and do that. You're about trying to make our community better. And when you do these events, it allows people to get excited about the township. It allows people to get excited about our parks. That's why you're doing it, right? And so you invest your time and make a difference in our community that way. So if it's doing that, that's an important part of who we are. I don't want you to just say, well, it's just too much money, if we have the budget to do it. And it's really, you think that's going to be the best thing to build community. So
That's helpful.
Yes. So
Yeah, the similar event that I'm comparing to was at St. Annie's, and it was school days, so maybe it was a little bit different, but it did draw very well. And there was food there too, and I don't know what we could do. Just what I saw was that was sports, but it was similar.
it is a community type of event. Does bring families together, which is a difficult thing to do in this township because we're so separated with our neighborhoods.
Right, set like green. Yeah. Sell popcorn or give popcorn.
Right, at this price, it wouldn't be much more to have free. And they do that at the concert in the park at Bryn Mawr, at the gazebo up there. 3 times a year, and they have popcorn. So I guess we're looking at, $1,650 or 16,500 total would be for one movie, just doing a rental the first time. I think we would need the township to tell us what. I could probably find a sponsor. I don't know that. We could get a sponsor for half of that or two sponsors for $500 each. That would leave the township responsible for 1655, and we could split it 3 ways. 2 businesses. I haven't hit any businesses up other than the family one day, and this is going to replace, like Joe said, replace our concert. I would think that probably come up with 2/3 of that, just soliciting funds in businesses. I
So we'll revisit next month, maybe.
Yeah, so the problem with Premier is that they said that they'll sell out quick. Especially for the time frame. What time frame do you guys think we're looking at, June or? Yeah. And their concert was in May. The point there. They're still in school. Guess we're talking about. There's a lot of rain. What are your thoughts, Joe?
I forget when the concert was.
It was in May.
Mid-May?
Yeah. Not mid-May, it was usually. Saturday.
Yeah, probably target around the same. I mean, I just think you're dealing with too much in June.
Get out of school, finishing up.
How about, I guess sundown is earlier in May than it would be.
8:30.
June 20th. I guess, do you guys think we should do it then, or? It will be used in, I'm not gonna hit businesses up for any other funds, and if we, there are other businesses that would contribute to smaller events if we don't want to do that.
I kind of think if you're gonna do it once, it might take word of mouth a little bit. So I understand running it first to see how that goes, but if is it $5 more?
So if we purchase the equipment, it's gonna be a lot cheaper because we would use it for 3 years.
Okay,
But like Steve said, we don't wanna,
okay.
But,
My-
I mean, if you said
my
you were gonna
numbers are
do
off.
3 this year, I would say go purchase the equipment, right? Because if you're doing that, it makes sense to go purchase the equipment. If you're saying you're doing it once this year and then you might do it again in future years, then I would say let's rent the equipment this year, see how it works.
Yeah.
And then make a decision whether it makes sense to invest in the equipment. But if I mean, if it's $975 to rent the equipment for one night and you can purchase the equipment for $1,200 and do the 3 movies, it seems to make sense to me, unless you're concerned about how the equipment works. If you're committing now to do 3 movies, then and you're doing it all this year, I would say, go purchase the equipment and go do it. If you're doing once this year with the idea that you might pick up and do in future years, I would say, why don't you rent it this year and see how it goes? I'd be interested in seeing what the equipment is, because I may say, yeah, go ahead and do it, because we could use that equipment to do X, Y, and Z in addition to just showing movies.
That's good.
So like, if like, if you have what it is, if you'll send it to George or send it to me, I just, like, figure out exactly what it is. If there's other ways for us to use it than just movie night, you know, like, we're gonna be going through the comp plan and putting out a new comp plan. What if the screen would be able to be used in that moment to put up something really big and be able to show what we want to do? You know, there may be other opportunities. So if I can use it for other opportunities, then I would look at that.
The PA system, I think is,
Probably the most expensive part.
yes.
It doesn't surprise me.
Do we have a PA system? I don't know that.
I don't think we have anything that I would think that could be used for the purpose of showing. I mean, we have something if you want to talk into, I think, but not for the purpose of showing a movie. Because if the sound's not good, nobody's going to come back. Right? I mean, like you've got to do it well enough that everybody who's in attendance says, it may not be like going to the movies, but it's got to feel, you got to feel some of the rumble. You know what I mean? Like, you know, whatever the motion is that, you know, sound has a lot to play into that, and you want it to be able to be heard
Okay,
and those kind of things.
all right. Do we want to put it on hold until next month and then vote on it then? 'Cause talking about doing it
Yeah.
rather quick turn. These are 3 shows we would end up doing them. November probably. But I can get George the information.
Yeah.
All right, so I guess we'll put it on hold.
Do a rain date?
Yes, I don't know how long we would keep. The premiere does offer you a rain date, but it's a weeknight. Well, May, I don't know that we're gonna get the families.
You wouldn't be able to do that probably during the school year. You might be able to do it in the summer.
So if we had a rain date, we'd have to postpone it till June.
Yeah, I guess the other question is, could you have a backup plan that if it's a rain, and I'm throwing this out there, this may not make sense, but like if it's a rain day, one, could we do it in here? You know, I don't know if it's big enough. Or two, work with Marple Newtown Leisure Services and potentially doing it in the gym there. And so that, you know, but you would have to have a date that they are not using the gym. And it would be like, you have to work through all of that. But those are some ways that I see as potential. If you want to say, we're doing it out under the stars, but if we have rain, everybody's going to here and we will help guide everybody there and, you know, do that.
The Gauntlet Center might actually be.
Even on their.
We could do it in Public Works garage.
But if it's raining,
I guess.
Pull the
It's
trucks out.
operating.
yeah, it is an option to have it there.
Yeah. George and I were just talking, one option too would be potentially doing it in the Public Works garage. We pull all the trucks out. He's having heart failure in the moment.
And Harry might have a heart attack on this.
We could ask Harry if we could do it over the firehouse.
I mean, but there are some options, so.
Yes, yes.
So I just think, like if because you are renting the movie and you're kind of locked in a lot of times with those, you got to figure that out.
Good point, Roche. Bring it up.
On board. I mean, I think it's
As long as we have a backup.
great, exactly.
And it would be different. I mean, it's something different that we haven't done before. And it is successful. Like Joe said, it's, you know.
It's a kid movie,
church.
you're gonna attract a lot of
Do we
families,
need
so.
to vote to have it reviewed by Stephen and George? And then if it looks good to you, it's a go? Like, could we give it a conditional approval? So it's not such a time crunch to wait until April?
I think if you want, I think if you want to do it, yeah, I think you could move forward with, we're going to have three criteria to move forward. And so one criteria, if you're thinking you're trying to get sponsors, you have to have two sponsors, or you have to have one sponsor, whatever that is. And then, review by us of the equipment, whether we think it's best renter to purchase. And then final, maybe the other criteria is, you have to have your date. You have to be able to have a backup plan to that day, so that you're covered on those three things. I think you could approve that, move forward. It gives you guys the ability to go, one of you to go get a sponsor, another one to go figure out what the backup plan is. And then, get us the equipment, and we'll get it reviewed and get it out to you so we can move it forward.
Yeah. How is that? How are we gonna word this?
Can I make a motion to purchase movie equipment with the criteria that we have 1 out of 3 sponsorship? Stephen Neese and George Sharitz give approval for the equipment after review. And we have at least 1 day backup date for the first.
Can I just ask is there a difference in them setting up everything if you rent versus purchasing the equipment? Or would we have to set everything up? Like, how does it work?
So they provide the personnel that sets everything up. So we wouldn't be involved other than parking
If we purchase the equipment?
if we rent it. If we purchase, then we're gonna be responsible. We're probably gonna have a tech person, one of your better tech folks, come in
So it
and
is,
help us.
it is more expensive if we buy it because of the man-woman power.
Sure, I think, and that's why I want to look at it and say, like, how easy is this to assemble?
Yeah.
Is this something that, I mean, if we're doing this, my guess is it probably ends up being George's team that comes out and assembles that. And then, like you said, we have to have somebody there to run it. What does that look like? I just want to see what we're talking about. If it's pretty simple and straightforward versus something that's, takes some level of understanding to get the right balance to make it work. It may be cheaper just to pay the $975 the number of times you're going to do it.
I think I would retract and say that both of you reviewing it should come first before we start asking for sponsorship.
Yeah, I think that's true.
Probably actually your review, a date.
Yeah, I would
In that
agree,
order.
because who you get to sponsor may want to
Be there.
be there. And, I think it's appropriate to allow them to be there and say a word or two to everybody. And, when you particularly, or at least make sure that you're giving them full credit, whoever's sponsoring.
Do you want to reword it then?
Okay. Scratch
I
that.
don't know that you have to reword it. I think we know the order. I think
the order.
because I think what you said was it needs to be
Still
those
can meet the
3 things. You
criteria.
didn't put it in an order
Right.
when you made the motion. I think you're just saying, we're gonna make these 3 things happen in this order in order for it to work.
Okay, so do we have a second to Caitlin's motion? Motion was made by Member Foy and seconded by Member Vanicola to do the research for this movie and move forward at a later date. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. Well, I think we'll let Joe and Caitlin decide what movie we should actually rent. I will send you
I wanted to.
you think it'll be enough?
That's.
The Moana. Sue was the name of it.
Do they do trailers?
Like,
Do they have
I don't know.
like the previews?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, I think not. Oh, gosh.
Or like.
Yeah.
I think the question would be is if they do previews, if you could get, if you were thinking of doing it a second or third time throughout the year, that's the preview that I would play and then let people know that's the movie that's going to show. So it'd be additional advertising. That was my thought. Probably cost you money to get the preview, but I'm just saying it's a potential way to advertise for your next movie.
Were there any other family events that we were going to discuss? What was it, that Rock Snake and this, or other?
At my email that the school.
Yes, oh, yeah, yeah. So Rose, can you tell us?
They haven't done the one act play since 2020, so they respectfully declined. But thanked us for reaching out.
I think we might have. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I just thought it was such a great idea to have that happen, that I think Steve had made the suggestion. Is going to work for them. And the concert, guys, we still haven't heard back from them.
No, but he wasn't
No, he wasn't too thrilled about it either. But,
next year.
yeah, so, yeah, we'll keep hammering them and hopefully they'll come forward. And if not, we'll find another school. We'll keep working at it. I thought they were great ideas.
The nice thing is if one school doesn't, we have other schools in town. And we've got several private schools in town. We've got St. Annie's, that's there. We have the Delaware County Christian School and we have Episcopal Academy that all have very talented arts folks for a variety of options. So
If anyone knows anyone at any of those schools and wants to start reaching out,